really care about their job.
Hey,
I've had guys come to tears because they were leaving our hospital.
Like I said, I've been to the hospital very recently, and it's night and day, and it's actually a beautiful place to go. I'm telling you, you feel comfortable going in there. Before 15 years ago, I tell you, when I went in there, it felt unclean. I'm not trying to exaggerate. I'm just being honest. The difference today, it's a much different hospital. Hey, Mike, again, I want to thank you for your service and for what you're doing now. Just God bless you for that.
Right.
Yeah, it's my pleasure, and you gentlemen have a great day, and go Trump.
Thank you.
Take care, gentlemen.
Take care. That's one of the things Trump's talking about is taking better care of our veterans.
What they need to do is get in there and start privatizing as much of the hospital system as they can.
I would like to see not necessarily a full privatization, but the right for a veteran that if he doesn't have a veteran facility around him, to be able to go somewhere else without a big hassle, or to pick the type of doctor he wants to get. I think the VA hospitals serve a very important part of the treatment of the way we treat. I'm going to give this man that just called. Everyone in that hospital has one commonality that's in there. They're all veterans. They're all brothers and sisters as veterans. And that adds, I think, a little bit to the understanding of what they're going through, and it helps them with their healing, knowing that the person next to them, whether it been another war or the war currently going on, that there's a commonality, a brotherhood going on. That's happening.
One of the things that you remember the old Allen Park VA hospital?
Yep.
Well, you can remember what was,
Right.
I was in the reserves there, and we did our weekends there.
Real quick, let's take David. Wants to talk about his father's military service. Hey, David, you're on the line with us. David, were you a veteran? I'm going to ask.
No, I'm not a veteran, but my father was. He was in the Korean War.
All right.
In the Navy on board a destroyer, and he was injured. He wasn't wounded, but he was injured in the war and lost the majority of his hearing. So obviously he's very elderly and he can't hear right now. But I just wanted to publicly thank him for his service.
Well, what was your father's name? Or what is your father's
Richard.
name?
Richard.
Great name. I'm telling you. I'll stick with that name all day long. Hey, and now, David, is your father still with us? Or?
Yes, he is. He lives in another state. And obviously, through the extended time since his injuries in the war, his hearing is just about completely shot.
I find a lot of veterans don't always share their stories unless you draw that out of them. Is he one that's normally open to share his stories, or is that
Absolutely not.
Oh, he's kind of like me. I had to sit there and pull a lot of this stuff out of Pastor Max today. A lot of these stories, soldiers just don't want to talk about. And here's why I find it so important to get them talking. Is first of all, I think it helps them in long-term healing. But more importantly, it helps us really understand what war is. War is not this clean, germ-free environment, so to speak, that we kind of picture it to be. And so does your father ever tell you stories about what happened over there, or can you draw this out of him?
No, he doesn't. He's a big fan of war movies, and he watches them all the time, but he doesn't actually talk about his service very much.
Well, you tell him, from those of us at WHAM, we thank him for his service.
I will do that.
And all the veterans. Okay, we're back. Anything else? Any memories that we can pull out of you, Max? I laugh, but any memories we can pull out? Do you have any good memories of being in the service?
Good memories? Well, all I can say about it is I had good times and bad times in it. And I wasn't a very nice guy back in those days. Did you ever go back? Have you ever been back? I re-enlisted, and I wound up with 6 years. Uh-huh. But the second enlistment, I was not a very, very nice guy. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know the Lord yet, and I was pretty wild, and so I don't think I want to get into it. Yeah.
Well, you weren't a nice guy, and you were pretty wild. That just described about 60%. Okay, I was going to be generous, say 60%.
But sometimes, when people thank me for my service, I think to myself, I don't deserve that, because I was not a nice guy. The Army was good to me. They fed me, they clothed me. When I was wounded, they gave me the best medical treatment, and I should have behaved better than I did. The fights in town, the broken bottles, and the court martials, and all of this. So,
well, you don't always want the guy out there that is the one that's going to walk up and help the old lady across the street to be the one that you want to give a gun to go and protect our country.
Yeah.
And war changes people.
Yeah.
And war can give people, when you think about the brutality of war, and this is what I wanted to kind of bring out in this conversation with you today, is the brutality of war. It's war. It is not a quilting session.
Not Monopoly.
It's not a quilting bee.
Yeah.
It's violent. It's brutal. There's blood. There's people in pain. I mean, you shared a story of helping someone who was bleeding to death, a South Korean, and you thought he was going to faint, helping out. You had a gash in your helmet that you wanted to keep. What was the cause of the gash in the helmet?
It was when we made that break down in the rice paddy, they were pouring it on us, and it hit me. I don't know whether it was a ricochet off the tank. I was trying to get cover behind a tank, or it was a direct hit, but it tore my helmet, and even the helmet liner inside was torn. But nothing happened to me. And for a minute, I thought I got hit in the brains, because the guy next to me said, "Schuster got it right in the head." And I thought I did. I was really shook up.
And I want to bring this out also, is we think of these soldiers, and we have to understand, the soldiers that we're sending, these are kids. And they're under fire, they're taking bullets. And yes, they are frightened. I'm sure, Pastor Mac, you could tell, many times you were frightened at the time of war.
Oh, yeah.
So you have this fear going on, but even in the face of fear, now there's the true act of courage, is when you're afraid and you keep moving on and doing what you have to do.
Yeah, being in the VA hospital, I talked to a lot of guys that said that the only time that they really were afraid was when they were afraid that they weren't going to do the duty that they were assigned.
There's also a chemical thing. You have adrenal glands that put out adrenaline, glands of combat. And this is hard to explain if you never went through it. But I was always more scared before the attack than I was when I was attacked.
Pastor Max Schuster, I want to thank you for coming on with us today. Phil, as always, it's a pleasure.
My pleasure.
Gary Wellings will be back next week. And to all of our veterans, happy Veterans Day, a day late.